Megan Fenyo presents I Am Enough TV. Be your best self. Awaken the power within you. Transform your life completely through the power of ultimately believing you are enough. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of I Am Enough TV. I am your host, Megan Fenyo, and I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Kevin Hofmann, today. Hey Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you on the show today. You actually reached out to me on Facebook after one of the I Am Enough TV episodes aired, and you shared with me your story. So this is actually the first time we've actually talked because we were just doing stuff by Facebook Messenger. So I know you have an incredible story, and I'm excited for my audience to hear it. But before we jump into it, I have a question that I always ask all of my guests. What does it mean for you to be enough?
Yeah, that's a great question because I really started exploring that in my life recently. So for me, it just means, man, you came fully equipped. So you are more than enough. And yeah, it's been very important for me, like I said recently, to continue to repeat that yeah, you are enough. And we'll get in some of the particulars of the story in a minute, but yeah, coming up the way I did, yeah, I really questioned that a lot. Yeah, was I enough?
Mm-hmm. I think that is so powerful because I think every single one of us has questioned that throughout our life, whether it be right now or whether it be from childhood or young adulthood. I think that that's a powerful question, which is why I, am on this mission to empower people to believe that they're enough. So share with us, let's just jump right in it because your story is intense and it's amazing and it's inspiring. So jump in where you want to jump in at and talk about some of your struggles and how you got into your strength and where you're at today.
Okay, so I was born in 1967, so 53 years ago this summer. And I am the product of an affair between a white woman and black man. They were both happily married, just to two different people. And so at my white mother's insistence of her white husband, she gave me up for adoption immediately. And it was actually her job to take me from the hospital to my first and only foster home. I stayed in that foster home for about 3 months, and then I was adopted by a white minister, his wife, and their 3 biological children. And I was born, I forgot to mention this, I was born in Detroit 2 weeks after the riots in '67. And so, interesting time to be born, this biracial kid, the result of an affair, into a city that was literally burning because the races couldn't get along. And
I do
so
have to say real quick, I'm a Michigander as well. So you're from Detroit and I'm from Grand Rapids. So we have to give a shout out to Michigan and our Michigander friends. So sorry about that, but I had to say that because I'm like, I don't know if you knew that. So
no, that's actually, yeah, I dated a young lady from Grand Rapids when I was in college. East
okay.
Kentwood.
Oh, yep. Yeah. I went to Unity Christian. So yep. But I know East Kentwood very well. Yep.
Yeah. So small world. Yeah.
Small world.
I live in Toledo now, but yeah,
okay.
Just have a love for Michigan and all that it offers. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so jump back in. Sorry, I just had to give our Michigan friends a shout out.
So I was born 2 weeks after the riots, adopted at 3 months old, and at that time, my father was the associate pastor at a church in Dearborn, Michigan, and we lived in Dearborn, which is a suburb of Detroit. And back in the late 60s, early 70s, Dearborn was considered a closed community, which just simply meant they weren't really fond of people of color living inside the city and did a lot to prevent that from happening. So as a result of that, I kind of got into the city on a technicality. I wasn't a family. I was only one individual. And but the community responded very vocally to the fact that this child of color was in this community that was happy to be closed. And so when I was 11 months old, we woke up to a cross burning on our front yard.
Wow.
We stayed in that community for another 3 years. And then my dad chose to take a call and pastor a church in Detroit, where the parsonage, or the home where the pastor and his family lives, was in a Black neighborhood. So now every day I go outside, I see kids that look like me. And that was amazing for me, just to see that and to experience, people that look like me. And so, that meant a whole lot. And my parents had thought far enough ahead to understand that that was important for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Incredible. So how did this affect you growing up as, a teenager, a young adult, and even now as an adult? How did the way that you grew up? So I'm a mental health therapist, and I talk a lot about how family systems and how we grow up and what we endure and what we see, shapes us as humans. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and a church on every corner, and everything behind closed doors was different than what we showed it to the world, right? So, and that shaped me. And how did growing up like that and shape you into who you are today? What are some of the big lessons that you learned along the way?
Yes. So I actually teach a class. So I'm a trainer for the state of Ohio, and I train foster parents and adoptive parents and child welfare professionals. And the title of it's a 6-hour training. It's all day long, but the title of it is The Lessons from the Life. So it's what I've learned from growing up in such a unique environment and family. And the biggest lesson was, so I talk about, and I've coined this term called adoption residue, which is the stuff that sticks to adoptees that for many, many years, people assumed it would just go away.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest one that affects me the most is that for whatever reason, and I understood logically why my mother gave me away. I got that. And I've met family members from my mother. I've met a sister and brother. And I understood that was the right decision to be made, because it would not have been a healthy environment for me to grow up in, as a constant reminder to my mother's white husband of her unfaithfulness. So I got that. But emotionally, for whatever reason, I was still separated from my biological mother. And so the way that translates in my head has translated in my head was, there must be something broken in you for the fact that your mother didn't even want you. Yeah. And so that's why when I came across the title of your podcast, I was like, wow. And so now that's been part of my mission, is I speak to a lot of adoptees. And that's what I'm trying to get them to see, is that, man, adoptees and foster kids, we've gone through so much so early in life. Understand that has made you much stronger than you think you could ever be. You've gone through so much trauma and just issues early in life, more than most people go through. So I'm trying to get people like me to understand that, man, that doesn't make us weaker. It doesn't make us less than. That makes us greater than. And so, that was the effect on me. And that impacted everything. That one relationship that didn't work out has impacted every relationship I've had since.
Yeah.
And so, that is something similar I repeat in my head all the time is, no, you're here because you went through that, and now you can help other people go through that.
I love that, because I always say that too. I was in a very domestic violence, abusive marriage, and I've had, lots of different trauma things happen in my life. And I always say that I'm always, as horrible as it was, it's not something that I wanted to go through, but I'm so thankful I did, because it brought me to where I'm at today. And I get to meet inspiring people such as yourself. And I used to be a CPS worker. I think I had told you that on Facebook. So I just want to tell you guys, the power of Facebook and social media. I did not know this man, and he reached out to me. We started talking. He went to college. You went to Elma, right? You went to Elma University. I went to Central Michigan, which is 15 minutes from each other.
Right.
And now you're in Ohio, which I won't hold that against you because I am a
Yeah.
go Blue fan, go Michigan.
Yeah. So am
Uh,
I.
but okay, good, good. But then now you work with foster care parents and children. And I was a CPS foster care worker in Michigan for 10 years while I was getting my master's degree to do therapy. So I started at 23 years old working and removing kids and working in foster care. And I loved it. It was like the most stressful job of my life, but
Yeah, I
it
can
was the most
imagine.
rewarding. I still have contact with some of my foster kids that I removed when they were like 5 months and 3 years old. And now they're like 19 and 20. And
Oh, wow.
it's such amazing work. And so I'm very honored that, you're sharing your story and that you're showing the world that no matter what you've been through, you can use this for good. And
Exactly.
I love that. So do you still have do you have any contact with your birth parents?
Uh, so I started searching for my birth mom back in, well, started when I was in college at Elma College. Um, Searched for 20 years, finally used the internet in 2009. Yeah. And found within 20 minutes had found my mother.
Wow.
Unfortunately, she died in 2003.
Oh, I'm so
Interestingly,
sorry.
yeah, that I had actually prepared myself for that. I kind of assumed that was the case. Um, and interestingly, I don't think my mother and father had contact after I was born, but
Mm.
they died within 2 weeks of each other.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. And so I was in contact with a sister and a brother. Um, and that went really well. And yeah, actually, my sister just recently died. She had been sick for a while. Um, but here's kind of how adoptees think. So
Yeah.
when my mother died, I didn't appear in the obituary because I was kind of her dirty little secret. But when my sister died, that was the first thing I looked at. I went to her obituary, and I was there, which meant so much to me that
Oh my
someone was
gosh.
claiming me as
Yes.
part of that family. Yeah.
Wow. That's
And so it's
powerful.
been, yeah, and it's been just an interesting experience. Yeah, to be a part of that family. And I'll share this story because it's just a really cool story.
Yeah.
Uh, so I connected with the family in 2010, on and off. We kind of connected. Met an uncle just over the phone, my mother's brother. And I talked to him once over the phone. He sent me some pictures of my mother, which was really cool. And that was 10 years ago. Yeah. So this Christmas, I get a card. I don't recognize the address or the name, quite honestly. And I'm like, what is this from? And I open it up, and it's a Christmas card, and it just says, "I hope you have a blessed holiday, Kevin." Kevin and Shalise, and actually named my wife. I didn't even know he knew my wife. And it was
Wow.
from my Uncle Harold. And there was a sizable check in there.
Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And that's how I was. I was just like, what? Like, this is straight out of
Wow.
TV that you saw this. And it was crazy because we had just decided to get this fence that we weren't sure we could afford. And he gave us just about as much for the fence.
Oh my gosh.
And I wrote him and I just said, man, the money was nice, but what meant the most was that you recognized that I was part of this family.
Mm,
And so
so
that has
powerful.
been, it's been tough. It's been a struggle,
Yeah.
but that story is really cool. The connection that I got with my sister before she passed is really cool. And all those little things is just so inspiring. And I'm like, yeah, there's a message here that's beyond me that I've got to just,
Yeah.
get.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a question. I mean, I have so many questions right now, but one of them is, you know, growing up with your adoptive father as a pastor. So I'm a Christian and I grew up in a Christian home and went to a Christian school and all of this stuff. How did that and I remember, honestly, this is horrible, but I grew up, and I remember when we had our first, African American family move into our neighborhood, and thank goodness my parents. I've always grown up with just an understanding and an acceptance of everyone. Thank goodness.
Right.
So it wasn't a big deal for me, but I just remember, I went to this Christian school, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like it was kind of weird, and now that I think back to it. but your dad is a pastor or a minister. I don't know which one, but pretty much the same thing. But
Yeah.
so how growing up in that type of family, how did they parent you? And like, how did you get to that acceptance? Because I think acceptance is so key in situations like this. And even, you know, maybe that acceptance didn't come until later, but what were some of the things that your, mom and dad did when you were growing up to help you feel more accepted? And when did you get to that acceptance piece? That yes, you look different, but you're part of the family,
And I think what they did, which again was just life changing for me, was they made sure I wasn't the only one all the time. And so when we moved to Detroit in 1970, we live in this Black neighborhood. So I'm always seeing kids that look like me, and they experience and understand life as I do. And so and it was just so comforting. And anytime you can find someone who experiences life as you do, there's peace in that, because you can say, hey, this affected me. And that what you don't want people to say is, no, you're just making that up. No, that doesn't really happen. You're too sensitive. And I knew I could go to my Black friends and say, man, this woman slighted me, and I think it's because I'm Black. And all I needed them to say was, yeah, you might be right. And I just needed someone to hear me. And so that was life changing for me, that I could grow up in that environment,
Yeah.
learn, respect, and actually cherish Black culture. And then have the ability to move in both environments, whether it's Black or white, and be comfortable with that. So my mom and dad gave me that amazing gift.
Yes,
And I
I
don't
was
think
just
they
going to say
understood
that.
just how powerful that was.
Yeah, because I think too, maybe they might have felt a little uncomfortable at times, right? Because
Yes.
now, they're in this Black culture and community, and, they're the white people and all of that. But that just shows the power of unconditional love and the power of the love that they had for you. I mean, that is incredible, especially back in the 1970s. I was born in 79. I'm a little younger than you, but yeah, I mean, especially in Detroit during all of that time. So what an incredible story. I mean, amazing. So right now, that's what you do for work full time. You work for the government, right? And you do foster care training?
I do foster care training. And then this is where I initially started. That's all I did. I was so focused on that one community, adoption and foster care. But then, and with the help of my wife, helped me to see, man, this story is so much bigger than just that small community. And so it's expanded into, I do diversity inclusion training, cultural intelligence training with K through 12 and universities and corporations, where my main goal is, and I think this is a direct result of how I grew up and who I came from, where it's very important and has become my life's mission to help reconcile the two races, because that's what I'm made up of. And I grew up in a city that has always struggled with trying to get those two groups to get along. And so that's become the bigger mission, is how can you make this a conversation that's easier to talk about so we all can understand each other, and at the same time just respect each other's 3 feet. And so that's been my goal and my mission.
That is amazing. So powerful, because it's so needed. And I love that you took your story and made it bigger, right? Because sometimes we all have a story, and I think a lot of us just kind of keep it hidden or just keep it really small. And like you, I did the same thing. I'm like, nope, I'm just going to blow this up to like start helping people and provide and give back, right? And provide support. So how can people like get in contact with you if they want to learn more about your trainings and maybe hire you to train? What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Through my website, which is the name of the book, which is growingupblackinwhite.com. And you can get there with my name too. And it's Kevin Hofmann, 1 F, 2 N's, kevinhoffman.com. And that's all. There's videos of me speaking, so you can see that. Just a bunch of interesting stuff on there.
That is I'm just like in awe about your story, and just so thankful that you took the time to kind of jump on here and join us. I look forward to continuing to support you in all that you're doing. I'm here in San Diego, so I no longer live in Michigan either. So if you're ever out this way, you got to let me know, because I'm sure there's lots of things that you could do out here for at the universities and all of that good stuff.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
sure. So one of the last questions that I always like to ask in our interview is, what is your favorite mantra or affirmation?
Like I said, it's specific words, but it's constantly reminding myself, yeah, that you're here for a reason. And that reason is so much bigger than you. And that, yeah, the stripes, I grew up a Christian, so yeah, that's actually really timely now. By his stripes we are healed. And I think that applies to a lot of us too, that by our own stripes and the struggles that we've gone to,
Mm,
we can help heal other people. That's why you went through that, to prevent other people from
yeah.
having to.
I love that. The stripes, and I always think about the scars, right? Like the physical
Yeah,
or the emotional scars, right? And
yeah,
I have it tattooed on the inner of my arm right here. It says everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe
exactly.
it. And so for those of you who are watching, like I said earlier, we all have a story. And if you have this feeling, this nudging feeling that you're meant to do something with your story, do it. And
Yeah.
it's scary and it's fearful, but if you're doing what you're intended to do, everything's just going to fall into place. And Kevin is a living example of that. So thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us today. I so appreciate you taking time out today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And I always like to end my show with my favorite quote, which is, "You are enough just as you are, regardless of whatever season you're in. And the more you celebrate and focus on that, the more you will live in your strength." I Am Enough TV airs every morning at 7 a.m. on easyway.tv, or you can find all the episodes on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV by simply searching Easy Way Network. Be sure to grab some free resources and learn all about the I Am Enough movement, and order your free I Am Enough movement coping cards at my website, meganfenyo.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, in everything you do, be bold, be brave, be unapologetically you, because you are enough.